Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
A woman who knew the ex-wife of one of the London bridge attackers, Rashid Radwan, has told the BBC she'd come to know him as just a normal man. She says he would sometimes show her pictures on his mobile phone of his hobbies, which included making cakes. Speaking anonymously, she describes her shock at learning that a man who lived in the same block of flats could have killed so many people. Her words are spoken by a BBC producer.
I just went in, had a coffee, spoke about our normal day. He showed me pictures of cakes that he'd made on his phone. Just talking about normal stuff. Nothing that I never left and thought, oh, that was a bit weird, or I never got that from him at all. I just thought that he was a genuine, normal person who spoke about his day and showed me photos of his hobbies that he does. And just a general human, general man.
And now you realise what happened, what he did on Saturday night.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
It's quite worrying to know that you can live in the same building as somebody and think that they're a genuine person, then to find out that a few months down the line that they're going around stabbing people and harming other people. Like, I never thought that he was that kind of person that would have done that to anybody. I never heard of him ever being violent towards anybody. So to find out that they actually went into London and killed loads of people for no reason, it's quite worrying, really.
Well, the London Bridge attackers put renewed attention on tech companies and the extremist material that they don't take down, and encrypted messenger platforms. Theresa May called for international agreements to regulate the internet to try to prevent the spread of extremist material. Google, Facebook, Twitter say they're investing significant resources in trying to fight the spread of extremism. Lord Ricketts was the National Security Advisor to David Cameron for 2 years. He's a crossbench peer, so non-party political. He's told this programme, quote, that a new wave of terrorism is getting past the authorities.
Constantly the authorities are having to do this prioritising. They're having to look through thousands and thousands of reports of people who may be saying crazy things or expressing radical views to sort out those who are the most dangerous and the most likely to act. And they have been good at that over the last 10 years since the 7/7 attacks. Now there seems to be a new wave of terrorism that is getting past the systems that have been in place. And so the police and the authorities have got to look at that. And are they following up the right leads from the helplines? Are they picking up calls from members of the public, friends and family? Can they put it together in any different way? Do they need more tools to get access to the internet? I think the internet is the new frontier, really, because people are being radicalised through the internet. They're using encrypted apps to talk to each other, and the authorities need all the access they can get to that. It's some mixture of those things, I think, that people have got to look at.
Right, so you're asking for help from the tech companies then?
Definitely. Definitely.
They have a role to play? They have responsibility?
They do, because a lot of the incitement to carry out these acts is coming from the Middle East, from ISIS and people, as far as I understand it, through YouTube and other channels. And then people are watching that in this country and are perhaps moving from being sympathetic to the extremist cause to actually acting. So yeah, I'm sure we need more help from these tech giants. The responsibility, of course, is with the terrorists, but as part of the jigsaw of things that the authorities need, I think maximum help from the Amazons, the Facebooks and the YouTubes is essential.
Let's talk now to Dr. Rachel O'Connell. She's an internet safety expert and used to be the Chief Security Officer for the social networking site Bebo. And Jim Killock is with us, Executive Director of Open Rights Group. They campaign on digital issues. Hello, both of you. Thank you for talking to us. OK. Can we talk about encryption first of all? Is there a way for the security encryption, i.e. no one can work out what the message is sent between the sender and the receiver except the sender and receiver? But is there a way for security services to be able to access the content of that message and no one else?
The simple answer to that is no, because if you create a backdoor, you break the encryption, and then you cannot ever make that backdoor secure, such that it's just the security services that can access it. So it's very problematic to propose this, because we need encryption so that we can buy stuff online, and our transactions are going to be secure.
Okay. Jim Killett, what's your view on that? Is there a way of bypassing encryption?
Well, there is one simple thing that the authorities can do, which is that they can break into people's equipment, and they have powers to do that because the material is not encrypted when it's at rest on your phone. The messages can be read on your phone, as you do when you look at them on your screen.
Yeah.
And if the security agencies want to take over somebody's device, then they can do that. So there is always that method. And I think what we have to remember here is that there is so much information now, and yes, these people are communicating on the internet, but the result of that is that they're more vulnerable and more visible. And whether it is the patterns of communication in metadata, which you can get straight from Facebook by asking for it, or whether it is the contents of these messages, which you can get by breaking into individual phones, the fact is their communications and plotting is a lot more accessible to the authorities today than it ever was before.
Right. Well, I'm really interested in that. So security services could hack a phone at any time and read an encrypted message, you're telling me, as the message rests on your phone?
When they have it,
right.
When they have the phone, when they have if you had my phone,
yeah,
you can see the messages on there. But you cannot do it when I'm transiting a message to Jim. As it's in transit, in flight.
Understood.
You can't hack it.
Yeah, understood.
But if I'm investigating, if I'm a police officer and I'm investigating you, I can take your devices and have a look at them. And if you were to look at my phone, you can see all of my WhatsApp messages there.
Okay, so I don't know why politicians are raising this as an issue.
Well, the reason is that they think that sometimes they won't get access to those phones, or they want easier access. So they want to be able to go to the company and just say, give me all the messages, without having to go to the trouble of targeting an individual person.
Understood.
So, yes,
okay, right. I've learnt something. Thank you. Yeah, that is really interesting. Okay.
But let's be clear. If they have this ease, of access, then we get less security. And also, because the terrorists know that these platforms are less secure, then they stop using them and go elsewhere.
Okay.
And I do think this is a very strange argument in a way, because if the government gets its way, it could end up with less intelligence. And I think we need to explore that. We need to think about this very carefully and not just assume that more powers and more commanding of companies to do things results in the outcomes that government claims it wants.
Right. Okay. I totally understand the argument that if you know, security services can hack a phone and read the messages more easily, then terrorists will use, you know, the next messaging platform will come along and so on and so forth. Yeah. But when you say, Jim, we get less security, they're not interested in us.
Well, the thing, as Rachel was saying, if you make the products less secure, then that's you and me have to worry more about ordinary criminals getting into this data, or other governments. We have to worry about what happens if, as a journalist, we visit a foreign country and, you know, our messages can be hacked by the Iranian government or the Russian government. You know, we have to remember that these impacts are not just on the extremists and the terrorists, they're on literally everybody. Okay. And so we all pay a price if the government goes down this road.
Do you agree,
yes,
Rachel?
I 100% agree with that. And one of the big challenges as well for the technology companies is that the extremism, the videos and things that glorify violence and terrorism, that's an issue also for the tech industry. And Google and Facebook are saying, well, we're trying, we're putting some money in, we're doing this and that. And of course there's a freedom of speech issue there. But essentially, the BBC, for example, Ofcom controls, will receive complaints about the content of somebody's behaving in a bad way on a programme or something. The same with the newspapers. There's some degree of oversight. There's some standards that are put together, editorial standards in relation to what sort of content can be shown when and where and in what circumstances.
Because you're arguing, I think, Rachel, that, you know, Google and Facebook, they're publishers like a newspaper or like the BBC or whatever. Jim, do you agree with that? That there could be a role for a global Ofcom?
Well, I have no idea whether that would or wouldn't work, but I think what we have to remember is when newspaper sites or the BBC allow comments on their websites, they're in the same position as Facebook. They don't have a direct relationship with these individuals, and people can post things which are illegal, defamatory, inaccurate. And while the BBC may is one of those examples where they do have the money to moderate those comments. That doesn't apply to most sites, and I don't think anyone really wants Facebook to be pre-moderating and checking every comment before it gets up. So the question then is, if they're not going to moderate everything, how do they identify the things that are bad? And that's a kind of retroactive thing. You've got to go looking for them. And what the government appears to be doing is saying, well, we want you to use algorithms. We want you to have computers checking for bad things. We want you to employ more staff to do checking. And then if they get it wrong and content's left up, we're going to fine you.
Okay.
Now, if you do that, you create a massive incentive to censor lots of content by computers that won't be accurate, and sometimes it'll censor things which are actually opposing extremism,
Sure,
because
I
perhaps it
understand.
maybe uses an image of ISIS or something.
Rachel, we've got less than a minute. Your response to what Jim's saying there about...
Companies are already doing this. They already use technical means and algorithms to moderate, and they also already have moderation teams. But the fact is
there's just not enough.
There's no oversight
Right,
over them
okay.
to give them the guidance that they need. And that is and they're not going to invest more necessarily until there's a consequence, because if you're a public policy person within one of these companies, you have to make a business case, and the senior management team will say, is there a requirement to do this? And if not, then we're not going to do it.
If not, let's carry on making the profits.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rachel O'Connell. Thank you, Internet safety expert. And Jim, thank you very much. Jim